Protective diet sheet pan nachos. Nachos for dinner on a protective diet. Start with fresh whole grain corn tortillas covered in simple to mix oil-free melt and bake cheese. With fridge ready toppings, handy use them up leftovers, and fresh garnishes, a 50-50 veggie starch balance of high fiber protection stacks up high and tops our favorites list. PD nachos will make you forget you're eating a diet for optimal health. Protective diet sheet pan nachos can be made from fresh made corn tortillas or store-bought corn tortillas that we bake into chips like you see here. This is a double batch of Protective Diet's corn tortillas made into chips or into tostadas. Tostadas are a little neater to eat, but I like the messy good stuff. So we're going for the real nachos, the sheet pan nachos. We're gonna layer onto parchment paper, and I cut this into 2 pieces, and I'm gonna show you why later. You can decide if that's an option you wanna do. And my melt and bake cheese is ready here. I did the steam step, and this is ready to go to layer on my nachos. And then what I'm going to do is just dip each one and layer it onto my lined sheet pan. Just like that. You can overlap them a little. You don't have to coat each nacho completely. That is up to you depending on how many you're making. I'm making this for both Jerry and I, so we make a double batch of nachos. Or I'm sorry, a double batch of corn tortillas, which is about 14 to 16 corn tortillas cut into quarters to make chips. You could also cut your tortillas into halves. This part of the process will go faster, and you'll also be able to scoop up more of your toppings. But I love the messy way we eat these with our hands, with all the toppings topped on top after we bake this cheese. These sheet pan nachos are a great way to use up leftovers, like your busy day chili, your red lentil chili I'm going to demonstrate today. If you have leftover roasted chili verde, black bean chili, Julie's beans, plant-based etouffee even tastes great on nachos. Maybe not totally authentic, but delicious. Pintos from the Pintos and Cheese recipe is another favorite. The unfried beans, they're refried beans, quick blend recipe. Those are great on here as well. Then if you want to make them meaty, the carnitas like I have here, or the chorizo crumble, which you see here, and the ground crumbles, those you might have left over in your fridge, ready to go. That would be a great topping. Just a little bit, just a little sprinkle. Makes a great addition. These are all make-ahead things or leftover things you might have handy in your refrigerator. And then we also have our fridge-ready toppings like guacamole, Pico De Gallo, salsa roja, salsa molcajete, roasted salsa verde, taco sauce. Oh, that's a huge hit in the community. The escabeche, that's a fermented Mexican pickle, carrots, onions, and jalapenos or serranos. And then there's sour cream replacements. We have our Jerry's plant-based yogurt, that thick and delicious soy yogurt. How about the Greek yogurt? Or the sour cream dream. That's a recipe I haven't made in a long time since using the thick yogurt. Then we can veg it up and make it a 50-50 plate meal by adding shredded romaine lettuce or adding a whole ton of Pico De Gallo or diced tomatoes and onions and jalapenos and cilantro. That's our extra protection in there, our raw veggie protection we're adding in. And when you're making your nachos, You don't have to cheese them all up. Like if you run short on cheese and you got extra chips, which I'm just getting messy in here trying to get this cheese out, but that's okay. You can always just layer these chips in after you do this bake off of all this cheese. But I'm gonna make sure I get all of this cheese out of the bottom of my steamed cheese pitcher. You could also take these and layer them under like this before you bake them. Our goal in the baking process is to get this cheese to firm up so that it's got a nice, almost like a microwave shredded cheese texture to it. That's our goal. The more cheese you put on them, you're gonna lose a little bit of your crispiness of your baked chips. So keep that in mind. But I like mine cheesed up. Putting these into my preheated oven for the bake step of the melt and bake cheese. While my cheese melts in the oven, I shredded up a head of romaine, a head of iceberg, because I love this fresh crunchiness to my nachos. Jerry, not so much. He likes a little topping, but I like to make a 50-50 bowl, and his ends up being that way anyway with all the Pico De Gallo and toppings. And then I got all my refrigerator toppings out. I have my meaty toppings of my carnitas. I had some red lentil chili left over that I used the steam reheat technique in my Instant Pot to heat that up. And I had some chorizo crumbles. Now, normally I would be using one of these, not all three of these toppings, or I would use my guacamole or my plant-based yogurt. I like to add something creamy to it, and these would both fit into that category, or the refried beans, or the pintos and cheese without the cheese because we have our melt and bake cheese, or Julie's beans, something beany and creamy, and the yogurt falls into that category because this is made from beans, soybeans, and the guacamole is made with chickpeas. So keep those things in mind. I like to add a meaty component, a creamy component, and then I like to sauce it up. And I'm going to show you. There's my hot sheet pan nachos. Look at how beautiful those are. And you can see the cheese is melted and it's firm on the top. But look at this, how it sticks together just like real nachos, and it pulls together, stringy, melty, gooey, sticky cheese. That's what we're going for. And you can layer them right onto the sheet pan, which is the way I like to do it. But when I'm eating with Jerry, sometimes we like to sit not on top of each other, digging in, fighting over the best nacho chip, and we separate them. So that's why I cut this parchment paper in half so that we can cut them in half like this. And then we each have a half, and I can slide this right off onto a plate and then layer them up the way I like them, and he can layer his up the way he likes them. But I'm going to show you how to do them straight on the sheet pan, because if you're having a party, you could slide this off onto a platter, which I've done. But I like them all in one, and then everyone digs into the platter if you're serving them as a starter at a party. So I'm going to show you that example. So I'm going to use the carnitas, and I'm just going to crumble those up on top. Oh my gosh, if you haven't tried this recipe, it's so quick and easy to assemble. This is jackfruit, and it's seasoned just like traditional carnitas. Carnitas means little meats in Spanish, and it's just little bits normally of pork, but not on a protective diet. Seasoned just like them to perfection. Next topping, it could be, you could add chorizo crumbles onto this too. I'm going to save these for tomorrow. And my leftover red lentil chili, I think I'm going to add a spoonful to each side of these nachos, because you bet I'm going to separate them, because I don't want to fight over them with Jerry. But if I had friends over, I'd leave them as is. Next topping you could put on is, you could add salsa, And I have two different kinds of salsa made today. I have my salsa molcajete and I have my chipotle salsa. This one's a cooked stovetop salsa that you could make with all pantry staple items. You can add a little bit of that. You could skip the salsa altogether and just go straight to Pico De Gallo if it's the summertime, or if you have fresh tomatoes handy. And this one's the salsa molcajete, the roasted tomato salsa that we make in the oven or in your toaster oven. It's one of my favorites. I don't have any fermented salsa, but that one's one of my favorites too. I guess salsa is my favorite. And then I have Pico De Gallo, and this is how I'm gonna veg it up for Jerry, because we have lots of tomatoes and onions and cilantro in here. This keeps well in my fridge. I make a couple big jars of it when I have fresh tomatoes, and then my cilantro, it's all chopped and ready to go. You can see making these, all I had to do was bake chips, and these sheet pan nachos work fantastic if you want to use up stale chips, if you made chips ahead of time, because once you layer that cheese on there and bake them again, you'll never know they were stale. Then other fresh toppings, these are all my fridge toppings. These are both fermented toppings, totally optional. We have the escabeche, these are Mexican pickles. They are fermented onions, carrots, and I have serranos in here. You could use jalapenos. These are all recipes on protectivediet.com. If you've overlooked these fermentation recipes, get into them. They're a lot of fun. Kitchen crafts. That's what I like to call them. And then I have these handy ferments in my fridge to season things up. You could add some ruby red kraut, not typical, but anything that I can get fermented cabbage into, I add a little, it gives it a little tang and a lot of protection. And then there's guacamole. This is a guacamole made with chickpeas and spinach, one of my favorites. And I like to pile this on like you'd get nachos at a restaurant. They'd put the guac like in a big pile in the center. Then you can pick up your nachos, and everyone takes a nacho and dips it in to enjoy it rather than spreading it out. It gives it a little bit nicer of a presentation, and then if someone isn't a fan of what they think is avocados, they don't have to have it. But you can tell them after they eat it that it's not made with high-fat avocados. Then my next favorite topping is crema or sour cream, and this is Jerry's plant-based yogurt, and it's beautifully thick, as you can see, straight out of the jar. You could strain this into Greek yogurt, but I like it straight up as is. And this I would put in a little dish or even a jar out on the table in case your salsa or something was a little too spicy. This is going to cool it off, so you can add more as you go. Now you might be thinking, where is she going to put all that lettuce? Well, instead of piling it up on top the way I like to do it, because I like to make my nachos or any meal that I eat on a protective diet 50-50 with a lot of veg to starch balance, or half and half. So I like to put my shredded lettuce. I love shredded iceberg lettuce with nachos. It's so crunchy. I'm going to mix it up with a little romaine, a little bit of the dark leafies of the romaine, and I make my nachos almost into a taco salad. So on top of this lettuce, to sauce it up a little, I'm going to add some plant-based yogurt. Go heavy on that. That's your angiogenesis inhibitors. All these veggies are anti-cancer, but oh my gosh, this soy yogurt is so protective. And then I'm going to add my Pico De Gallo, more vegging it up. Oh yes. And spicing it up. I'm going to add a little more salsa. This one's the salsa molcajete to add to my salsa, and that's going to make like a salad dressing on this shredded lettuce. And then slide them apart. Looks like Jerry's getting all the guac. And I'm going to take my nachos off this parchment. and put them straight on top of my, almost like a taco salad there. That's how I like to enjoy mine. You can put them on a plate. I put them in a bowl so I can go at them and not make as much of a mess. And then Jerry's, I'm gonna slide. Now for Jerry's veg, I'm gonna top it with some lettuce on top, like you get typically with any nachos, just a sprinkling. Maybe a little more than a sprinkling, because he likes lettuce too, just not as lettuce heavy. So that's it. Sheet pan nachos taken off and made into a 50-50 bowl, or an individual serving on a platter, or leave them on the pan and serve them up at your next party on a protective diet. Take care and best of health.